Welcome to Williamson Inc.'s first ever virtual meeting series, Topics of Today. My name is Matt Largen. I'm the president and CEO of Williamson Inc. We're Williamson County's Chamber of Commerce and Economic Development organization. You know, we started these Topics of Today because news is changing really quick, and we want to make sure that we're doing everything we can to get you information you need now to meet your immediate needs. So we started this new weekly series, again, Topics of Today, and today we're focused on a topic that was certainly something we're hearing a lot from our small business community around financial relief, especially through the Small Business Administration. I want to start today's program by thanking AP Live. We're actually at their studio space today. They're a great chamber member, great investor. So if your company has interim needs for space or long-term needs for studio space, please check them out. They're, again, a great corporate citizen for Williamson County, and I very much appreciate their support today. I want to talk a little bit before we jump into today's guests about what we're doing now and how we're serving our community. We're open for business, just like a lot of organizations and businesses in Williamson County, but the way we're doing business looks a little different. So the first thing we did when everything happened a few weeks ago is we created a website. It's williamsonchamber.com/coronavirus. This website has a lot of great resources and information for your employees as an employer. It has a link to a survey that you can take and talk about ways you've been impacted and affected from this. Also, post some interesting and creative ways that you're managing through this crisis. So again, I encourage you to check this website out, williamsonchamber.com/coronavirus. You know, we are here as a staff, as a team, to help you through this process. And our goal really is to meet your needs of now. And that's why each one of our team members is reaching out to our members to have this conversation about how are you doing and what can we do to help. We've also created a Williamson Inc. group Facebook page, so check that out. Again, we have a lot of our members that are posting some interesting and innovative things that they're doing to help manage through this crisis. We're working closely with our economic development partners at the Convention and Visitors Bureau. A lot of our hospitality industry was hardest hit. They were first hit, so we're working with them on things we can do from their employees' standpoint and from the employer standpoint as well. We're connecting restaurants and caterers to serve the homeless population in Williamson County through the Homeless Alliance. So we're thrilled to be part of that. And finally, we're actually going to start hosting some virtual events. We'll be hosting our first Leads Connect exchange in the next week or so. You can go to our events page on our website to check out all the information about the events we're holding in the interim. It is exciting today for me to get a chance to talk to Kel McDowell. Kel is our Director of Government Relations at Williamson Inc. He is going to talk a lot about what's happening from the small business standpoint. Before I get started, though, Kel, small business is the lifeblood of really any community. Williamson County is no exception with that. 90% of our members are between 1 and 10 employees. And I know how hard this has been for them. We've seen it in our survey. I also know that how emotional these businesses are for these companies. Every ribbon cutting I go to, you have an owner stand up and talk about the sacrifices they've made for this business, what they've done with this business. It really becomes like another child for them. So I know how hard this is, both for their business and their teammates, the people that they employ, the people who depend on this for their livelihood. So if you wouldn't mind, Kel, talk about some of the resources out there for those employees who have been laid off in our community.
Absolutely, and thank you, Matt, and thanks to all those who are tuning in today. There are 3 resources all through the state of Tennessee and all listed on our website that I'd particularly like to plug. The first is through the Tennessee Department of Labor and Workforce. That department has a COVID-19 resource page for both employers and employees that they can file for unemployment insurance. What's important to keep in mind is that the eligibility has been significantly opened up during this crisis. The second resource that I'd really like to be able to plug is the Tennessee Department of Human Services. What they've done is they've tapped into federal TANF funds, that's Temporary Assistance for Needy Families, in which families are eligible for monthly sums that are tied to 50% or more reduction in their hours or employment. Then the third resource that I'd really like to be sure to plug is jobs4tn.gov. That's a state partner, it's a public-private partnership resource there. And one of the initiatives that they significantly have right now is called Talent Exchange. They're working with various business sectors that are seeing increased activity to help those who may have lost employment due to layoff or furlough.
That's great, Kel. Thank you for that. So if there's someone who's watching this who's been laid off, or someone who knows someone who's been laid off, what else should they know in addition to what you just talked about?
You know, certainly that resources are being rolled out throughout the day. Please, remain vigilant. Please continue to refresh williamsonchamber.com/coronavirus, but to also please feel free to reach out to us as well.
Great, that's important. And again, that website we update it on almost a daily basis, and right now it actually does have some resources for people who have been laid off. Actually has some job postings of positions that are available right now too as well in our region and community. So let me jump into the Small Business Administration, SBA. That's where a lot of this relief is going to come from, specifically for the small business community. And I think it's important to point out that you're not an expert on this. I know you know a lot about it. But I think it's important for people to know we have resources for the experts, but I kind of think about you as a caseworker. You will be available to our businesses to help walk them through this difficult process. So I wanted to talk about two of the programs. The first, the disaster loan program that exists before this, and also the PPP, which you'll jump into, that was just approved by Congress through the latest stimulus. So go ahead and let's start with the disaster loan. What does that look like? Who's eligible and how do you apply?
Absolutely. So the Economic Disaster Loan Program is not brand new. It has existed in prior years. What is a first time is for it being utilized for a situation like this. What it does is it's a loan program specifically for those businesses that have been impacted by an economic disaster, in this case, the COVID-19 outbreak.
Now, and I should back up for a second. How does the SBA define a small business? What does that look like? Who's actually eligible?
Absolutely. So a good rule of thumb is 500 or fewer employees. Typically, that's the benchmark that'll apply. Now, there are exceptions based on those businesses that engage in certain sectors. But what's also interesting about the times we're in right now is that sole proprietorships and independent contractors are also eligible for these opportunities.
Oh, that's great. Thanks, Kel. So obviously the devil's in the details when it comes to applying to a government program, right? Servers being overloaded when people apply. What's the best time of day to actually apply for this loan?
Absolutely. Just speaking of the ramifications and the ripple effects that are truly ongoing at the moment, there's been a lot of traffic on the application page for the Economic Disaster Loan Program. So a good rule of thumb to kind of play by right now is early morning or the evening, perhaps even sometime outside that 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. window, because it can get particularly frustrating when you're mid-application, you've saved materials, and then the website crashes. That's not been uncommon at the moment. So early morning or the evening is a good time to be working on that application.
Great. And speaking of the application specifically, what sort of information do you need to have in front of you before you go and actually make application for this loan?
Absolutely. So I've written them down right here, some forms that will be very important to have before you start on that application. Again, because you'll be saving it midway through, and it's really good to have these ready to go. So one is the owner's personal financial statement. Now, you'll want to do this for each and every individual owner of your business, but this will entail a lot of different information regarding to your personal holdings, cash, personal property, liabilities, whether that be mortgages, car notes, the like. And again, this can be very complicated and time-consuming, and you'll want it for each and every one of those owners. Another form that you'll want to be sure to have at the ready before you start your application is the IRS Form 4506T. And what that is you'll be filling it for both your business and for the owners. And that gives the SBA authority to go into your IRS files from years prior to basically run through those as they're going over your application. Then you'll want your federal income tax return for your business. Now, obviously, many don't have their 2019 completed. 2018 can be utilized for these purposes. If you have those files on hand, that information on hand, you're starting off at it from a great point.
Great. Thank you, Cal. I know that's really important. As people actually apply, they need to have that information in front of them before they go on. And I mean, obviously, any sort of government forms can be a level of frustration. So anything you can do ahead of time to cut down on that frustration definitely be beneficial for you in this time. So, so with the SBA disaster loan, one, do you have to pay that one back?
So you do.
Okay.
So it's important to note. Yes, absolutely. So it's important to note that the loan amount itself can be up to $2 million.
Okay.
Now, it's 3.75% interest for businesses and 2.75% for nonprofits. It can be up to a 30-year term on that as well. Now, much like the other program we'll be discussing shortly as well, there will be anywhere from a 6 to 12-month deferment that will be available for these businesses that are enrolling in this program.
Okay. What can you use those funds for?
So there are a handful of different uses. Payroll is eligible under the disaster loan program. Various accounts payable, various debts that are incurred from the disaster in and of itself. Utilities are eligible on that front as well. And it's important to note, that these are very specified, in and of themselves.
Okay. So do you have to provide collateral for the disaster loan?
So if the amount of the loan is under $25,000, as is typical with SBA loans generally speaking, you do not need to provide collateral. However, if you exceed that $25,000 total, yes, you will be required to provide collateral.
Okay. And what happens after you apply? What does the process look like, the processing process look like after you make an application?
So we're learning more about it. Again, just as we were discussing earlier, it has been high traffic. So many are feeling these impacts right now. But what we do know right now is you will get confirmation that your application has been submitted and received. From there, it does appear that SBA has been good about sending out emails saying, well, your application's in review, having these status updates out there. But especially for those first few days, it did kind of feel a little bit ambiguous as to where it was going from there, but you do get verification.
Okay. And it's important to note that there are links on our website specifically to SBA. There are people in the Nashville office as well. And again, I think Cal can be a great resource in terms of caseworking people through this. So let me talk about the next part of it from the SBA, and this is from the CARES Act. That was the latest bill that was signed by the president, I guess, over the weekend. It had a number of provisions for all sorts of different industry, but specifically around $370 billion for small business. So talk about what that looks like, specifically with the Paycheck Protection Plan.
Absolutely. So the PPP, as it's been dubbed,
All right.
I believe it was closer to about $350 billion,
Okay.
but still a very significant amount. And so what the PPP is it's modeled off of the SBA's traditional 7A loaning program. That's their primary tool for loaning to small business. Now, what's interesting about this initiative is that its purpose is exactly in the name. It is designed to help businesses ensure that they are able to retain employment, keep Americans employed, and it's a tremendous opportunity. It's capped at one of two different amounts. It's either 2.5 times the average monthly employment cost from throughout 2019, or $10 million, whichever sum is less in this case. But it's a tremendous opportunity, and we're learning more.
Yeah, so it is so new. The regulations haven't even been written, which allows the agency to actually put this into practice. When will we expect the rules and regulations or guidelines to be written about this?
Yeah, absolutely. Financial institutions and banks are still awaiting their guidance from the federal government on this program. But from the indications at the moment, hopefully we'll be hearing something by the end of the week.
And so that's important to note, too, because even though this is SBA, this actually goes through banks. Talk about what that looks like. Who actually administers this, and then what should someone do? What's the first thing someone should do if they're interested in applying?
Absolutely. So first and foremost, talking to your banker, talking to your lender, talking to the financial institution you work with is of the utmost importance. But from there, the SBA will have those designated financial institutions that will be participating in PPP. Now, every state, every county, or not necessarily every county, but every state has their list of SBA preferred lenders. So that gives a good jumping off point for what those participating institutions will be.
That's great. So how do you actually qualify for this? Do we know enough about the program to know who actually qualifies or how you can qualify?
Yeah, absolutely. So going back to that small business definition, good rule of thumb again, 500 or fewer employees for the most part, different exceptions among industry sectors, but also now sole proprietorships, independent contractors, and that includes gig economy workers.
Okay. Nonprofits eligible for this?
They are. So
Okay.
for the PPP, nonprofits are eligible under two different conditions. One is that they are a 501c3. That's your traditional charitable nonprofit that you might hear more about,
Right.
or a 501c19, which is certain veterans organizations that are under a certain threshold. It's important to know that the nonprofits are also expected to adhere to those employment levels. And one quick plug as well, that 500 employee count means part-time, full-time across the board.
Okay, that's good to know. How much can you apply for, or do we know that yet, for this program?
So in terms of raw dollar amounts, it's capped at $10 million. Now, that's the interesting part about it is the 2.5 multiplier from the employment cost, which includes not just salaries and wages, but also benefits and the like. So whatever comes out to be the lesser amount of that, whether it's 2.5 applied to that amount, and again, that's an average of the months composing the year 2019, or the $10 million sum is the capped amount.
So with this loan, do you have to pay it back? What does that look like?
You might. Now,
It's good to know going in, right?
Indeed, absolutely. So a lot of publicity and a lot of notoriety already behind the program is going because there is a loan forgiveness component. Again, this program is designed to help Americans hold on to their employment and help businesses help them do just that. Now, from what we can tell so far is that if those employees are retained without their wages reduced through the end of June, that we could see some loan forgiveness. Now, there can be variations on that depending on a few different things. There seems to be a $100,000 cutoff that's part of this, where the salaries above $100,000 don't, that can lead to different amounts and perhaps even, totals that a borrower could be on the hook for. But on top of that, wage reductions do seem to be factored in as well, where somebody could be on the hook and see a little bit less forgiveness on that end. But you could be forgiven.
Okay, that's good to know. It sounds like really the best advice we could give people watching this is to talk to their banker, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. There are SBA professionals at all of the participating financial institutions who are experts in just this type of lending. And the resources are out there as well, and we'll make sure to direct you.
No, I think that's really important. We've obviously got a list of banks that are chamber members or Williamson Inc. members on our website. You can search by topic there. But I think that's what's really important. I believe, too, even if you're not an SBA preferred lender, could your bank be eligible to participate in this program if they choose to?
So the participating financial institutions will be designated by the Small Business Administration.
Okay, that's good to know. All right, well, that covers the two main programs. I know we took some questions ahead of time in preparation for this event. What were some of the questions that people asked as we were preparing for this event?
Yeah, absolutely. We certainly heard a bit about whether the wage reductions would impact forgiveness on that PPP, the Paycheck Protection Program. And the answer is yes, there will be impacts. Now, under the car hood, in terms of what that looks like or anything else, remains to be seen, especially as guidance is being rolled out, but that can impact.
Yeah, okay. Anything else that questions that we had before this event?
I would also plug that under disaster loans, nonprofits are also eligible for those, and that's a wider range of eligible nonprofits that can apply for that.
Okay, that's great. Yeah, please.
One more thing to plug. So it is important to note that you can participate in both programs while the window is still open, and that's TBD in and of itself. What's important, though, is if you do participate in both programs, those sums cannot be used for the same purpose. So just a very important overlap to keep in mind.
Right. So when you talk to your banker about the new program, would your banker send you to SBA for the disaster loan, or might they have expertise in that as well?
So if I understand your question correctly, are you pursuing the PPP and talking to your banker?
Right.
So that will be administered through the financial institutions.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead. Well,
And contrarily, Economic Disaster Loan Program, the EDLP, that is administered directly through SBA.
right. So that would be your banker then referring you directly to SBA, which you can find that information on our website too.
Correct.
Right. Okay. All right. That's good to know. Okay. Well, I think more than anything, Kel, I appreciate your service at this time. This is incredibly important, and we have 94 people took the survey on the website. Nearly all of them said financial relief is incredibly important to them at this very difficult time, and the avenue through that at this time is through the Small Business Administration. So again, it's important to note, Kel is not an expert, but he is a resource for you. And he'll help you walk through this process, be your caseworker, do whatever it takes. My goal after this event is that Kel gets overwhelmed by people interested. We'll find help for you, Kel. But really that people reach out and really make use of this, of Kel and his expertise in this time.
And one more plug on that Paycheck Protection Plan is the eligible uses are have really expanded because of the current situation we're in. That not only includes payroll, but it includes mortgage, lease, or utility payments as well, which is very significant.
Great. Okay. Thank you, Kel. I appreciate that. We'll just a few more things before we close out today's presentation. One of the things we've done through the surveys, we've asked for some, again, creative solutions that companies have done to help manage through this crisis. And so one of the things that we're hearing from these companies, before we jump into that, I would say about a third talked about the idea of some sort of rental relief if they are a tenant. I know there's examples in Williamson County of that happening. I think it's important, though, that if you're a tenant, check your lease, see if there are already some provisions of that in your lease, check your insurance to see if that could cover any sort of issues, and then have a conversation with your landlord. Some landlords are in better position than others to make exceptions, to work out some sort of payment plan, but I strongly encourage a tenant to have that conversation with your landlord, have that, hopefully have that good relationship with your landlord, and see if this is a possibility for you if the landlord's in a place where they can do that. So I just want to run down some examples of some of our members who submitted some things they're doing. I thought this was really interesting. There was one, tapping referral networks is incredibly important, especially if you're a business that is built off of referrals. There's a garage door and dock equipment company. They're asking for referrals from non-competing local businesses, asking lock and key companies to recommend them if they're asked where to purchase a new garage door. We're seeing a lot more activity on social media for sure. Companies are encouraging clients to buy gift cards now for future services. We see that. We've seen a lot of that around social media. Incredibly important for cash flow for some of these small businesses. I'm sure you've all seen this. A lot of Zoom meetings with clients. That's really important for sure. We've actually seen companies that are doing curbside delivery that aren't restaurants, which is really important. And at least in the city of Franklin, those businesses are allowed to stay open as long as they do provide that curbside service. A lot of companies are moving in-person appointments to online, especially a tutoring company from one of our members. A lot of companies, obviously, in this time are allowing staff to work at home, encouraging social distancing, which is incredibly important. Kel and I are still 6 feet apart, and have implemented a common area disinfecting program as well. Encourage people to patronize local business and support their neighbors. Absolutely. That is really, really important. And this was, I thought, one of the most interesting things. There's a party and event company that developed a virtual caricature art entertainment experience to replace birthday parties and small gatherings, again, using that Zoom conference software. So what has been done in person is now being done over Zoom. We're seeing things like Zoom happy hours. So there's a lot of things that technology can really do. I think I encourage you to take a look at what your colleagues are doing too. Kel, something you want to jump in?
Just, speaking of the surveys overall, you touched on it early on, Matt, just the passion and the importance and just pouring themselves into these businesses. You truly feel the passion projects that so many of these small businesses are, and it's truly incredible just the pivots you see and absolutely just a meaningful experience for sure.
Yeah, no, that's right. And some of the calls we've made, there's some heartbreaking stories for sure, but there's also some stories of resilience and ways companies are managing through this process. I want to make a note: if you're a restaurant and you're still operating drive-through or carry-out, the Williamson Herald is compiling a complete list, and then the city of Brentwood is actually putting out a map for all of Williamson County. So if you haven't, check those two places out. If you're a restaurant, please put your information in. If you're a potential customer, please check out those restaurants that are doing takeout and delivery. That's really important today. Thank you for giving your time to us today. Kel, thank you for being part of this program. More than ever, I encourage you to shop local, support each other, do business with each other. That's the only way we get through this, is to help each other, support each other, lean on each other. Our team is here to serve you, so please reach out if there's anything we can do and any help you need. Thank you for being with us today. Thank you for your investment in our community through your investment in Williamson, Inc. And as we leave you today, I want to again thank AP Live for their help in providing this great studio space. Here is how they can provide virtual technology for your business right now.
There will always be a need for in-person meetings and gatherings, but sometimes that's not possible.
We still need to work together as teams. We just need to do it in a new way, and we can help facilitate those conversations just all online.
We're able to offer some virtual solutions that are going to allow for that business to still take place and for those important conversations to still happen. Whether it's online polling, whether it's a digital touchscreen, whether it's a fireside chat or a panel, whatever is best going to communicate your message virtually, we can make that happen.
AP Live has been doing virtual meetings for a very long time now. We've been doing them all over the world, and that expertise and that experience is what will allow us to help you communicate your message and be collaborative as we move forward in the digital world.